Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2 of coping mechanisms. So in this episode, we are going to delve more into coping mechanisms and also home intervention.
Yes, we're going to talk more about, we'll mix and match how you can intersperse your coping with some immediate environmental home interventions that you can do as you are slowly accepting and getting, so maybe Pat, we can start talking about some of these things, yeah?
I think I really liked what you said, meanwhile, about how the program you attended helped you look at yourself. And you guys know I'm very passionate about this.
Yes.
One of these days, we shall go further into that, I think. But it's so important to have a conversation with yourself and ask yourself why, if you're so upset, why are you so upset? If you are heartbroken, why are you heartbroken? And tell yourself the truth. Like, it doesn't matter what, because you're having a conversation with yourself, so you can be honest with yourself. You can literally tell yourself, I did not want a child who had special needs. Why don't you want a child who has special needs? Because I don't want to have to put in the effort. Or because I do not want my child to be excluded from things in my family or in the
I think you're even jumping ahead. It's more, I don't want the stigma
but
that
the
comes
stigma,
with
that's
it.
the word.
Yeah,
it's actually
the
one
stigma.
word.
It's one word.
The stigma, yeah.
Most of us don't want that stigma. So the moment you get a diagnosis, that's what goes through your mind. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But the reason why I'm bringing this up and I'm saying ask yourself those questions is because it helps you. It's actually how therapy works, I think. It's like looking at different layers behind your feelings and understanding why you act in a certain way or fail to act in a certain way. And the reason why I think it's so important to have a conversation with yourself is because then you know what you need to deal with. If the issue has been that it was too difficult for you, or you feel that it would be too difficult to have a child that has special needs or is on the spectrum, then you know that the issue is now I need to find strength, or I need to find a way to continue with my child while they have this condition. And then you're able to see the ways you can help yourself. I find strength personally from these ladies, speaking to them individually as well as a group. I find strength from reading about things. I find strength. What I'm trying to say is you find different things that equip you to keep going daily, little tools that become little steps that become a big, that make a big difference over time with yourself. Why is it important? If you don't figure yourself out, if you don't help yourself, you'll never get up to help your child. You'll never leave that state. And we don't want you to be stuck. That's the last thing we want. We don't want you to ever be stuck. Because if you're stuck, then your child will also be stuck. And we need to intervene as quickly as possible. After getting that diagnosis, for some time I first acted like nothing was happening. My child is fine. He's alive. He eats. He breathes. So I don't need to do anything. But then, like I said before, autism is loud. So I needed to deal with it. So I started to share a bit with the people who are around me. And at the time I was working in a bank. And if you have ever worked in a bank, you know that you see more of your workmates than anybody else. Or those corporate situations where you're working long hours. So you're seeing more of your colleagues than anybody else. And I remember there's a lady, hi Stella. She approached me and she asked me about my son. I don't know, I think it was because she was very kind and she came to me from a place of no judgment and just kindness and grace. She knew about the diagnosis. Actually, she didn't even know about the autism diagnosis, but somebody had told her that my son was nonverbal. So she approached me from that angle and she said, okay, so have you gotten a diagnosis and stuff? And I told her, yes, I have. But then I was very open with her about the fact that I didn't know what to do next and I didn't know where to start. And she has a nephew that's on the spectrum, and she was kind enough to share with me the fact that the parents of her nephew had attended this program, which she believed changed everything for their family. So of course I was curious. I started to ask. I literally, I don't, if she recalls, I was at her desk all that time asking for every single detail I could get. She got me the spelling, because you know when you hear sunrise, you're thinking the sun. So she got me the spelling of everything. I went, I Googled everything. I looked at I watched all the videos. I saw the videos of this person who has autism but was able to overcome all these challenges, was able to overcome being nonverbal, being aggressive, and it was just amazing for me. But I think the thing about it was it felt too good to be true, but it also felt like action that had good results, right? And just like you, when I went for the program, when I attended it, first of all, I was given sponsorship and stuff. So it's not like I was money bags just there, with, ready to go to this country and stuff. But they were very kind and they were very supportive. And when I got there, just like you, I was ready for this mathematical formula that's going to give me the result of no more child. And I remember every single thing that we did was working on myself. And when I say working on myself, I don't mean just helping me deal with the fact that I had a child who was on the spectrum. I mean, who did I think all my children, not just Harvey, but any children that I had, what was my expectation of them? I learned so much that I was expecting to live through them. So they were going to hit all the milestones that I hadn't, or achieve everything that I was not able to. And I realize now, after working with several parents, that we are very many in that boat. We all want our kids to achieve way more than we ever did. And we think that the way that they will do it is if they go in a particular direction and path that we have formulated in our mind. So as parents, we project a lot. And that projection stops us from two things: appreciating who our children are, like as them, as individuals, and appreciating the difference and the uniqueness that they bring to the world, because you're constantly looking at them in a different light. You're looking at them in the light of that doctor or that lawyer or that future Einstein or Steve Jobs, whatever it is that you're fixated with is what you're looking at your child. So you're not actually seeing Harvey. You're not seeing his goodness. You're not seeing what he's good at. You're not seeing his quirky self. You're not appreciating his actual character. And I felt like that was such gold as a parent, not even just a parent who has a child on the spectrum, but as a parent, appreciating the uniqueness of your child. And the other thing was just allowing life to be. Sometimes the expectations that society has given us or the communities we live in make us think that life is supposed to go in a particular way or a particular pattern, and we do not know that we're actually restricting ourselves to something that's so, first of all, it's boring, but secondly, it then removes happiness from us with our own permission. Does that make sense?
We think it is safe. I think we can't. Yeah, so it's safe. It is what you know.
It is what
we
you
all
know.
Don't. Yeah. So people fear the unknown.
Exactly.
Yeah. So because we don't know the other side, or what if I let it happen? What is on the other side?
And that's all very true.
Yes.
But Claire, stepping into the unknown is the quickest way to getting happiness.
True.
That is with hindsight.
Yes, and I see
yes.
that that's a topic that would be complex and maybe a little bigger, but at this point, it was like the same way you risk in investments, in business, in, lawyers will understand when you're taking on a client you have no idea about, or a case that you don't know, like you don't know what, you're not certain of what the outcomes will be. There's a certain, for me at least, There's a certain invigorating thing about taking risk and stuff. And for me at this point, what helped me to get to my next level was that, okay, now we're going to look at this parenting thing as our own particular journey.
Right.
And if we fail along the way, it's okay. We already know the traditional path that we had formulated in our mind, and we can always revert back to it.
So basically, we're charting out a new path.
Charting out a new path, starting different, everything.
Strip away what I
Exactly.
know. Just, okay.
And of course, that also comes from us, from somewhere, you know,
yes,
it comes from somewhere. That's why I said it's so important to have a conversation with yourself and figure out what those little things about yourself. Because for me, obviously, and I know I'm really digressing, but for me, it obviously came from the fact that growing up, I didn't really have too many, because my parents both died by the time I was 16. So that means I had to create, at least that's what I told myself, that I had to create my own mentors and my own, and I was of course using excellent people. I was not, using average people. So I was using excellent people to teach me the kind of woman I needed to be. Excellent people to teach me what, a father needs to be, or what men need to be, or, you understand? And that was not very realistic. So it hadn't been working.
Okay, so basically the image you had in your mind already wasn't...
It wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
For me, because I was unhappy with my child. I was unhappy with the way my life was in this new formed thing of having a child with autism. So maybe if we do this new path thing of creating a completely different life, it will work. Right. So what did that translate into? And we finally come to that point. What did that translate into? It meant that whatever I read about, or whatever I felt was going to help my son get to where he needed to be, which is a place of independence, self-sufficiency, we were going to do it. Okay. So if in our home we needed to get rid of anything that was like a trigger or made him feel overwhelmed and get sensory overload, we were going to get rid of it. Wow. So we had, if it was about the paint, if it was to be neutral colors, we were going to have neutral colors. If we were going to have a carpet so he can have some texture to feel for his sensory needs and stuff, we were going to get that carpet. If I had to get all the toys out of his room so that he could have a clean, clear room, so that he can be calm and actually sleep and, have a place where he can calm down for all those moments where he had like aggression or something, we were going to clear the room. If we were going to do, so that's in terms of the way I structured my home and the way I made it like physically, what I made it look like for my son to thrive. It stopped being about, when people come to my home, it's nice and beautiful and floral and there's flowers here and pictures there. Now it became what helps Harvey thrive.
Wow.
As opposed to what does the society expect when they come into my house. Right? Yes. That was the translation for home. Wow. The translation for the way we lived as people in terms of our diet, for instance, and nutrition, it meant that we're cutting out, and this is a longer conversation, but just to touch on it, we cut out gluten and we cut out dairy. What does that mean? Anything that had wheat, we stopped eating.
So as a family?
As a family.
Wow.
Anything that had wheat, we stopped eating. Anything that had milk, or there's a protein called casein, right? Yes. So it wasn't so much milk, but that protein. So whether it was yogurt, whether it was milk, whether it was cheese, or anything with like an element of dairy was completely cut off. It was extremely hard for us, the adults. But every single time it became difficult, I just remembered, why are we doing this again for this boy? And I mean, just to talk about the diet part, everybody has different results. And I learned that later. But the results for me were tremendous because suddenly he was more active, he was more receptive to things. And, of course, I have no scientific way of attributing that to the fact that, I changed his diet. Because remember, I did everything. I changed the house. Yes. I changed the diet. But I got the results that I wanted by being this more or less obsessive mom about the way I was creating an environment that I was that I felt was conducive for him to thrive. So that came from that place of let go of all those social norms and ideas of what things are supposed to be like and focus on what actually works for your family, for your unit. And that was, so when I had that element, that basic element at the back of my mind, it didn't matter if it was nutrition, if it was sport, if it was anything, if it was school, we were doing what works for Harvey.
Wow, I like that. That's powerful, Patricia. That you first understood yourself,
Yes.
looked at the child, looked at Harvey and say, this is what he needs. And you
Yeah.
went full throttle,
Yeah.
this is the way we are going
Yeah.
until you got the results. That's really, really something. I mean, yeah? Wouldn't you agree, I think?
Yeah, I wouldn't agree more, but I'll also be honest, it wasn't a straight path. It is a process that you go through. Just like you said, have a conversation with yourself and be real with yourself and get to that point where you know that this must happen. You must do this. For us, I'll tell you, we started the diet and stopped. We kept on starting and stopping because it was a challenge in our Ugandan setting. You walk into a supermarket, the snacks all contain wheat, and all the nice stuff contains dairy. The ice creams, the cheese, everything. It was hard. It was very, very hard coping or adapting to the diets. I recall the first time I attempted that diet, Yona lost so much weight. And then guilt came through me. I was like, oh my God, what is this I'm putting my son through? Is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Then I had to put him back. And then on putting him back, you realize there's still that hyper activity on him. And then you're like, what do I do? But I think in the process of talking to people, looking for options, you get to realize that you can have alternatives of these things. You can have an alternative of what can he have instead of dairy. What other options are there? I had to look into knowing the options that he can have alongside his other people in the house. So unlike for you, we did not withdraw wheat to the entire family, but we would look for an alternative that would match what the others are having. So if, say, for example, they are having chapati, his chapati wouldn't be made out of wheat. It would be made out of a flour that does not contain gluten, because the substance that's toxic to them is the gluten that is in the wheat. And anyway, now I've come to learn that it is toxic to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it's toxic to all of us. So even me, these days, I have less and less of wheat products. So that was on the bit of the diet.
So Banang, no bread,
No
chapati,
No cookies,
no cookies,
No
no
cookies,
biscuits,
no
yes.
cake,
no pasta.
no eh?
Yes,
But
because
yeah.
all that sweet.
When you read and you ask and you engage with autism, one of the first things you're going to find is they're going to say diet.
Yeah.
Change the diet.
Yeah.
And why do they talk about that? So it's a mind-gut connection. So there's research that says the gut and the mind are connected. If you have a weak gut, it's going to affect, or a sick gut, it affects the way the mind processes, the brain processes. So clean the gut and you get the mind and the brain to process a little better. So there's research that says that some children on the spectrum or some people on the spectrum have a leaky gut, meaning that it leaks nutrients, and then certain nutrients make it even weaker, which is the wheat, the dairy, and the casein and the sugar. Sugar creates the hyperactivity. And even for our neurotypical kids, give them soda one day and they're sleeping at 10 p.m. or they're up, all over the place. Yeah, 10 is early. So with our neurodiverse children, it is to manage those things. Patricia took the extreme route. You sort of paced yourself in that way. And I think it's for us to understand why, you are doing it, because simply saying that doesn't inform the parent. They'll sit and say, sure, my child only eats pasta. What did you say? Spaghetti?
Yeah.
The child, but if they don't eat spaghetti, they're going to starve. I am not going to remove it.
And that's a legitimate
it's a legitimate concern.
challenge.
Yeah, somebody will say,
Yeah.
me, my child only drinks milk. If he doesn't or she doesn't drink milk, they are going to tantrum. They're going to. So how do we manage that? Those are the immediate interventions. What do you do? Because you're talking, we went extreme. How did you manage the children through that process? What kept you sane? How did you not give up?
Well, it becomes, you now become an advocate for your child. You're the ambassador for your child. So you have to speak for them in every area. When it comes to family, you have to explain to them and you have to bring them to understand why. You talk about the dangers. And then I think they also get to see the results of it and also start believing in it. So we would have our special time. I would tell the children that, because of Yona's condition, we're going to have a special meal for him. So I even started out by saying, let me have this special meal with Yona so that I make it look special. So I say, oh, Yona, we're going to have our special food today. And even Yona started accepting it. Even his brothers, even when I wouldn't be there and probably they've gone to a party or somewhere, they say, no, Yona does not have this. Yona does not eat this. Surprisingly, one time Yona went on a trip, his school trip, and he himself told the teachers, I do not eat bread. So you have to walk that journey, you have to educate, and you have to make people understand and live by those terms so that they know it's just like a diabetic person does not have sugar. That's true. Yeah. So it's the same thing. You said because of his condition, this will affect him. So you get the family to understand. You get the school to understand. Like everywhere you know your son is going to be, try as much as possible to be the advocate for your child. Yeah.
Well, this is such a big topic, ladies. I feel we're going to have to come back to it.
But before we do, before we close, I just want to say something very simple. Please use Irene's method. Because being extreme came with its consequences, which I'll share in the next episode possibly. But your method is perfect. Because in doing it in phases and understanding the reasons why and explaining even to Yona and everybody, you had a permanent result, right? Like up to now, Yona knows that, he doesn't eat bread and stuff. As we speak, have eats.
Oh, no.
But you see, not as much as before. Yes. Of course, it's not like he depends on it. If I don't have it, it's not there. My point is, if I had done it that way, I would have had a more permanent effect. A sustained. That's the word. It would have been more sustained and easier to keep going. But right now, because we did the extreme, we got some very good years of speed and thriving and all of these things for all of us, meanwhile, because even myself. But now we're in that stage where we're going back to like now, and because now he's older. So you can't just say, there's no bread today. Why can't mommy go and buy bread? Or, things like that. But yeah, maybe we'll get into that. But I think I've made my point, really, that, extremes are also it's not the best way to go. Yeah.
So I think we will have to come back to this topic in terms of the interventions, immediate and home environmental changes you can make so that your child can thrive even before you go for the professional interventions. There are some things you can do, even as you yourself are trying to cope, but that will help your child and you will see progress and change. So please tune in next time as we continue this discussion. For now, please subscribe, share the link with a friend, and please put your comments in the field below and we will get back to you. Thank you. Please tune in next time.